What's going on? So this is a very deep video. Um, I'm just gonna start it off and just continue talking. So I've done a lot of for the past 6 years. I've kind of dedicated my life to learning about psychedelics and exploring with different psychedelics and different substances and researching shamanism and spirituality and all these different aspects of the spiritual thing. So I've going through this information, I came across aliens and UFOs and conspiracy theories and so many different sides of this coin, let's call it. This universe is like a multi-dimensional coin. You know how if you flip a coin, it's heads or tails? Well, the universe is more like a multi-dimensional coin where it could be heads or tails or other things as well. Just multiple different heads or tails, like the multiverse, and the universe is very complex. But what I've come to the understanding of is that there is no God. God is a misunderstanding from primitive beings touching that thing, touching the truth. But don't mind me, I just hit the bong. I also lost my voice 2 days ago. Just got it back yesterday, so my voice is still a little scratchy. But I guess all this information that I've been learning, I kind of just want to talk about, but I don't know how to talk about. You know how they say psychedelics are so insane of an experience, but it's hard to explain in English and it's hard to explain in words. It's that problem that explaining the truth of reality is so complex that it's hard. But here I go. So imagine everything is energy. God is energy. We are energy. Consciousness is energy. Um, Electricity flows through my computer. Electricity is, pumped into this cell phone through the wall and then stored into a battery. And then when the battery runs out of electricity, runs out of life, you give it more life force or you give it more electricity. Now, I think electricity and the human soul have a lot in common. I think that the human soul is like everything is electricity. Let's just break it down to the third dimensional aspect of consciousness is electricity. You can see electricity in the third dimensional world, but there's parts of electricity that are not third dimensional. Like everything is like multi-dimensional. I don't know how to explain this besides the fact that the light spectrum. So you have this little tiny visible light spectrum that humans can see, but there's gamma rays, there's ultraviolet rays, there's X-rays. Now, humans don't understand what these words are. People think an X-ray is just a machine that allows you to see your bones. No, X-rays are part of the light spectrum. It's a form of light that we can't see, just like a dog whistle is a frequency that we can't hear. Dogs can hear the dog whistle because the frequency is higher than what a human ear is allowed to hear. What I am trying to explain is that the human body is a filter to create the human experience. God is not God, it is you, it is us, it is everything. And everything is experiencing the universe in its own different way. God is experiencing the universe through me, through you, through the phone, through the animals, through the bugs, through the birds. God is consciousness, but the idea of God is really fucking annoying because religions got a hold of it and then it became this man instead of the energy that is controlling the man. There is no man in the sky. It's the energy, it is the sky. It's the fabric of the space and time and the molecules and the atoms, and inside those atoms are quarks, and inside those quarks equals E8. Everything I'm saying sounds crazy, but this all is quantum physics, quantum mechanics, mixed with a little bit of spirituality and a little bit of psychedelic exploration and learning and this and that. But I have just came to the conclusion that you have to go on your own journey. It's not going to make sense. I'm going to write books. I'm going to attempt to, I'm writing a book about this and I'm trying to get everything out. But what I realize is my journey is my journey and it can't really help you. Besides, I can tell you what I've learned and I can show you that I've gone on this journey, but I can't really relay the English message because this is why it starts to sound crazy. It starts to sound crazy because an undiscovered science is crazy. Like, before quantum physics was discovered, that would have been fucking crazy. Quantum physics is fucking crazy on itself. But if you don't understand quantum physics, quantum physics is basically the study of the small quantum world. So, like, if you look with a microscope at your hand, you start to see that your hand is made out of things. And then those things are made out of things. And so forth and so on. Until you start to get to a really weird world. Now, the complicated part of all of this is that understanding what consciousness is going to destroy religions and it's going to destroy science. It's because consciousness is just what is. There is no necessarily purpose to the human world besides to evolve yourself and to learn and to grow and to whatever the fuck. But the whole purpose of the whole thing really is probably just because consciousness is the only thing that exists in the universe, so it creates a universe. You know, imagine God, consciousness, whatever the fuck, in black space, space with no stars, no planets, no black holes, no nothing, just a vacuum of emptiness forever. But you have a mind. You have there is something like energy, like electricity flowing through this black infinite nothingness. And that electricity is consciousness, is what we mistake as God, but it's the thing that is in everything. That's why religions say, God is within you and all this other shit. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Really, what is going on is everything that is conscious is God expressing itself into the third dimension. It's just a fractal. Like the fractals are, it's like a mathematical pattern. So a fractal is like this mathematical pattern that constantly fractals out, I guess. Oh, shit, fucking. But really, the fractal pattern of the universe fractals out in everything we do, from the way we speak to the way we think to ideas to children. Like how humans have children and then those children have children and then those children have children. Like that's a fractal. Like, the entire universe is based on this. And the reason why humans just chop it off as, this shit is crazy. Unless you're a true psychonaut, you didn't watch a damn shit of this video. Like, but reality is that the monkeys will never understand. It's going to be their great-grandchildren that will understand. Like, I'm a dumb monkey just like the rest of them. My great-great-great-grandchildren hopefully will no longer be Homo sapiens. Like, Homo erectus was the Neanderthals. Then human species evolved into Homo sapiens, whether we were changed by, the Anunnaki and our DNA and shit, or whether it happened naturally. Regardless, we are Homo sapiens. What's next? What is the next human species? We're Homo sapiens. Is this going to be the final form of the human species? I don't think so. I think that humans are going to constantly evolve and become more of what we were meant to be. That doesn't mean that the information of what we are can't exist today. It's just all of this information requires you to let your ego down and listen. Because the main problem with the human species is we don't listen, because a monkey is just going to scratch its ass at the end of the day. And That's the problem, is that we're primitive monkeys that still scratch our asses and jump around and just over some dumb shit. And, you know, if we see monkeys, other humans, throw a ball into a hole, we jump around in fucking happiness and yeah. Like, we're still very primitive. You can't drop all the information of the universe into the human species today, because human species would wink out. We would all lose, like, so many people would lose their mind. And it's because the mind of the human species isn't ready yet. We're not ready to accept aliens. We like to play around with the idea, but are you ready to genuinely physically see an alien in front of you? Like, me and my girl were talking about that one time tripping. That shit would scare the fuck out of me. If I literally walked in, like, even though I'm woke enough to understand, like, listen, like, I understand the universe, and all this other shit, but, like, it would freak me out. Seeing a giant bug-like humanoid thing. And that's because I'm still primitive. But my great 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 grandchildren might have more of an understanding that this is what the world is in the universe, and so they might not get as freaked out if they've seen something. Because fear is put into us, ideas are put into us. So, I was talking about this with the movie Soul. The movie Soul allows the idea of, I guess what I would say, because I think the movie Soul was based off of someone's DMT trip. Like, someone had a DMT or ayahuasca experience and basically put it into a kid's movie, because that shit was like a DMT trip. I've had many DMT trips that are very much like the movie Soul. But it's just that puts that idea into the next generation's consciousness. As children, my children will have that idea of the afterlife before the idea of the Christian afterlife. This is the issue with the human species, is we are so easily manipulated and brainwashed that you can literally take 200 years to brainwash the human species and completely make them believe something that's not true. Like, so literally, right now, the fact that the movie Soul exists, I don't know if the creators did this on purpose or if this is an accident, but regardless, this is happening. That the movie Soul is now like this idea in children's consciousness. And that they'll be the next generation to have kids when they grow up to be adults, and they will teach their kids something, because the idea of heaven and hell and all of this comes from the Christians. And the Christian belief of heaven and hell, even if you're not a Christian, you have Christian beliefs because you think of heaven and hell like a Christian. You're not thinking about it like a native. Native Americans have a different idea of heaven and hell. They have a different idea of the world. Because what this world actually is, like, they understand it on a primitive level, that we are all one, meaning we are all consciousness, we are all the same thing, we are all God, it, whatever, the thing that exists in the universe, and we're all connected. The plants are connected, the planet is alive. It's not, the planet itself is a form of the collective consciousness. The fact that there are many different plants on planet Earth, which is one giant rock, but that one giant rock has a giant metal core, and this giant metal core is on fire, is like molten lava. But imagine that molten lava is its soul, in a sense, that the planet has a soul just like we do. And it's this giant fractal that we do not understand, because we are so primitive and we're taught this bullshit belief from this bullshit world that's not even real. Like, and watching what's going on with the stock market and GameStop and this and that, I'm laughing because this shit is hilarious. Because people are starting to understand that this world is so fake that it can be manipulated by humans just investing in GameStop. Like, this is a weird thing. It's so fake. Everything's fake. The bullshit, the business, the way America's set up, the politics, the whole thing is bullshit. But I don't know. That's why it's too hard to get the information out there. Because, like, people like Alex Jones, who dedicated his life to finding out the truth wherever it took him, and it brought him to madness. Because people don't understand that the truth is too complicated for a monkey mind to understand. So you have to figure out ways to get the information out. My ways is videos. I literally, so like, I have a bunch of trip reports recorded online from so many different psychedelic experiences that I've had. But if you asked me about those psychedelic experiences right now, like me personally right now, I wouldn't really remember. I've kind of trained my brain to be like, yo, let's have the trip, let's record the trip, let's forget the trip and move on with my life and apply what it taught me to my life and then move on. And it's a constant, I've trained myself to do that, to have an experience, learn from that experience, apply it to my life, and just live my life. I don't really think about my past. I don't even think about the good memories of my past, not my DMT experiences, none of it. I try to forget it all. It's not even a try to forget thing. It's like, I really don't remember thing. And I think that helped my brain um, from kind of feeling like it's overloaded with information. Like, and I have information in my mind if I need it, if I generally need to go back and think, but I've lost many details of my psychedelic trips. That's why I like to record trip reports while my psychedelic trips are fresh. Because ask anyone who's had psychedelic experiences, the longer you, like, if you make trip reports, you want to talk about your psychedelic trips. If you had a psychedelic trip 2 days ago, you'll be able to talk about it so much better than the psychedelic trip you had 2 years ago. The psychedelic trip you had 2 years ago, you can barely remember anything. You barely remember the details. Do you remember what clothes you were wearing? Do you remember who you tripped with? Like, that's some shit. You can go far back enough if you tripped 20 years ago and forget who you even tripped with and forget what substance you even took. So I think the key to the human brain is learning how to hack it, because the brain is not perfect. It's a bunch of mush and it's so fragile. And so it's like the way that I learn information, I speak the information out, and then I kind of clean my slate by either meditating, thinking a certain way, being a certain way, but like it just allows me to intake more information. And by doing this, I've learned about, human genome number two and how that's kind of weird. I've learned about quantum physics and how quantum physics and quantum mechanics seems like the math and science that's like describing the psychedelic visuals in a sense. Um, there's just so much weird shit and weird connections with religion and psychedelics and just I think that we are slowly getting there though, because as I watch scientists and how there was this scientific study where John Hopkins University gave rabbis and priests, like priests of like churches and shit, gave rabbis and priests psychedelic mushrooms uh, to try to make them have a spiritual experience. And this is a scientific study that's just happened, like 2019. And like, this is real shit. Because this is where spiritual experiences come from. But we're so much in the beginning stages that they're not ready to hear that, okay, there is no such thing as aliens, that it's all just humans, that it's all just the consciousness, the soul, the thing, uh, manifests itself into this meat machine, but on other rocks that are close to their stars, it's manifested itself into other meat machines. And it is just all one. And it's all the aliens. People say there's reptilians and there's Pleiadians and there's this and there's that. But the reason is because even if they're bullshit and even if they're wrong, they got the right information. It's the truth. There might not be the Pleiadians or the Greys or this or that, but there are other alien species, humanoid humans that evolved on other rocks that are next to different stars. That when we look up in space, when we look up on the planet, we look up at the stars, one of those stars has a planet next to it that has another alien species looking up at our star, our sun, saying, maybe there's an alien on that planet. And they're saying it in their language and they're whatever, but we don't understand what's going on. And this is too complicated. And this sounds crazy. It sounds like conspiracy theories. It sounds crazy. But what the fuck? Everything's a conspiracy theory. Don't let any fucking scientist or doctor or anyone make them think they're smarter than you. They're dumb as fuck, just like all of us. They don't know shit. They're taking the wildest guesses based on some assumptions, based on math, based on science, based on religion. What is religion based on? A book? What was that book actually based on? Actual spiritual experiences. Actual people who touched the thing and then tried talking about it. That's all it is. You can touch the thing too. Go take ayahuasca. Go take 5 grams of mushrooms in silent darkness. Go smoke DMT, NMDMT. Go, uh, I don't. There's so many ways to get to that point. You know, people say, does meditating do it? Do Buddhist monks, get to that point? And not really. They can get to the point of feeling the oneness and getting some of the information, but to fully be immersed in it, to see it fully, you have to take an external plant substance, some type of molecule that can change your brain chemistry enough to remove the filters. Because we don't understand the world, so we think that drugs are bad, okay, and you should be sober. But there's no fucking such thing as sober. That word's some bullshit made up term to keep you brainwashed. You are just dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin. You are nothing else. The only thing that you are is a bunch of filters in a human body to prevent your consciousness, from being what it actually is. You don't, you will be what you actually are at the moment of death. At the moment of death is what we actually are. It's the same thing at the moment of the so the most intense NN dimethyltryptamine experience I've ever had was the moment of death. The moment where I no longer existed as Mark, whatever the fuck, whoever you want to call me. These things, names are just ideas that the body has to, you have to name the body, you have to name a table, you have to name a phone, but this is why I say none of this is real, because on another rock, somewhere else next to another sun, there's a alien species making a video on their, what we would call a phone, they call it something else. And it's we just don't see this as a fractal experience. And whether that at the moment of death, it's like, death doesn't exist because death is a concept by human beings that we make up. So, like, we try to explain something we don't know, so we call it death, and we say, that's the death of, you die. It sounds so fucking horrible. Really, it's the moment you actually become alive. Right now, you're a filtered you. So if you remove the filters of the human species, the human species can only see the small visible light spectrum, right? Imagine if you could see every single light spectrum. Now, human beings can only hear a small amount of the frequency spectrum. Imagine if you can hear every frequency spectrum. All of these, the only reason you can see physical things is because everything's filtered. But like, there are colors that exist that you can't see. Just like a dog whistle, dogs can hear sounds that you can't hear. We can see it in the science of the world. In the science of the world, whether it's the visible light spectrum or the sound spectrum or the fact that dogs can hear sounds that we can't hear, or like this, the fact that you can play a frequency so low, and I only know this because I make beats, and in my beat maker, there's a 30 band frequency equalizer, and it's like the only reason why it's in those 30 bands is because if you go any more that way or any more that way, you can't hear it. So it's like there's no point to make a song with high frequencies that you can't even hear. So that's why humans only make music that we can hear. So, but there's sounds that we can't hear, and what are sounds? What are frequencies? The reason why Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the universe, you have to think in vibrations, sound, and frequencies, whatever. But like, that is some real shit. We do not get it. There's some people that do get it, but they're not. It's like their opinion doesn't matter. Like shamans, some scientists. There's more dumb scientists running the world than there is actual scientists running the world. Like, because presidents have scientific advisors and people who advise them on things, but the scientific advisor for the president is probably a dumbass compared to the scientists that work at Johns Hopkins University. Like, this is the issue is there's a conflict of interest to keep humans dumb, to keep the human species just this slave race that we work and we work and we die and we work and we die and we never live. We never fully understand why we are even here. We never fully understand, you know, how many people are Christians just because their mom and dad were Christian? How many people don't believe in aliens just based on the fact that they've never even fucking bothered to research what is an alien? Like, it's mathematically, it'd be mathematically impossible to say there's no aliens, because if the mathematical equation that it took for human species to evolve on planet Earth, based on how far our planet is from our sun, if you mathematically look at the stars and see how, whatever, you can see that there would be thousands of humanoid species, because there would be thousands of planets that should be in the perfect position to grow bacteria just like us. So it's, I don't know, you can do it in your bedroom, bro. Like, you can literally put a fucking, get some old food, put some food, put some plastic wrap over some old ass food and let that shit sit in your room for a week. You're gonna see that there's a bunch of shit growing in there. That's because it has the right conditions to grow bacteria and mold. So we are just we fractal everything. Everything's a fucking fractal. You can grow your own mold. You can grow your own plants. You can grow your own human. Like, Earth, just like Earth, grew us out of single cell organisms, eventually making multi cell organisms, to eventually making the human species and animals and plants and this and that. But like, that was only based on the fact that the Earth created basically a bubble wrap around itself that we call the atmosphere, and the sun created heat, which then it held in moisture, which then mold started growing and plants started growing and things started growing and bacteria like us, multi-cell organisms, and we're just giant ass bacteria that just walk through planet Earth. And like, I don't know, trying to explain this shit is really complicated. Because you just end up everywhere. You end up talking about religion and aliens and God and plants and evolution and this and that, because it is all one. It's all the same. I guess what I'm trying to explain in this video is the information I've learned, because information is useless unless it can be relayed to the next person. So if I can't at least attempt to explain this shit to you, there was no point for me to even learn it in the first place. Like, so someone out there, all it takes is one human to get it. And most likely one of you will be in a better position than I was. Like, it just so happened that my human life had to be in a position of a poor man. I grew up, with very little. I would ever still have very little, trying to build and change my mindset, and grew up poor. So I'm trying to adapt rich people's mindsets because I understand the mind. But all of this is my circumstance that I have to fight through and get through, but I had to do what I had to do to become the man that I am today. So maybe one of you can take the information from the man that I am today and do something with it, because I don't know what to do with it. what do you do with the information that, okay, there is no God, that we all are God, there's this consciousness and there's this giant thing, and this is the machinery of the universe, and E8 is just a machine, like an eighth dimensional machine that is creating all of these things, and that's kind of like fluctuating all of these dimensions that's lower than the eighth dimension, and our third dimension just so happens to be in this machine, and it's just this giant ass fluctuating thing, and all it is just because what is the big bang is basically the point where, now this is all in my theory series, everything I'm saying right now is in theory series episode 9. So if you go to my YouTube channel and you go to theory series episode 9, you can see basically my theory on what E8 is and what the universe is and the third dimension and heaven, and how most likely heaven is just the next level of this machine. And the whole alien thing, how there's other aliens and other rocks and whatever, that's still just the third dimension. That's still just the third part of the machine. Because aliens, I think, and there's another theory I have, theory series episode 8, which explains that aliens would basically, DMT or death is kind of this thing where even aliens, reptilians, and humans and everyone goes, because it's just this weird thing. So I have it more in detail on my videos. So if you really want to go in detail and all that, you can do that. Eventually, I'm gonna have theory series into a book where all of this information will be condensed and organized into chapters and into a book. So then it'll be a little more easier to, I guess, understand what I'm really trying to say. But yeah, whoever fucking watched this shit 31 minutes in, y'all are fucking woke as fuck. But yeah, so stay woke, keep doing your fucking thing, and yeah, y'all are awesome.